Hello and welcome to Sunrise Cardcast, your one-stop podcast shop for all things hockey cards. My name is Eric Andrews, also known in the hobby as Hammerhawks. I'm joined by my co-host and fellow hobbyist Aaron Goldstein, better known as Crease Collector. So starting things off for the episode, Aaron recently picked up a few unique items for his Jonas Enroth collection. So Aaron, I will turn the floor over to you right away and you can tell us about those unique additions.
Yeah, I just wanted to open up with these. Got these in the mail a few days ago and just wanted to kind of make note of them on the podcast. These are, I guess they're quite old now. Eventually we'll be going into old school territory, but they're from 2009, 2010 Upper Deck OPG Premier, which is a product that I would love to see return in the future, but I don't think it will. But I mean, one can hope, I guess. I just really like that product and so these are sort of from that, I guess. These are the artist proof cards from two sets, from the OPG from your trio set and from the quad memorabilia set as well. So yeah, these cards, like I remember seeing a lot of artist proof from this time period, probably surfaced over 10 years ago. And there's some kicking around, but none that I've seen of Enroths. I mean, they've sold a long time ago, and I just thought, well, I'll put them on the want list, but I don't really expect these things to ever surface. I mean, they're quite rare, and once they're sold, I don't really think they're kind of, I guess, worth, relisting again, especially from a casual collector who might have picked them up back in the day. But there they were on eBay not too long ago, so I was quite surprised and managed to scoop them up. For those who have been in the hobby for the last little while, I mean, you might be familiar with the yearly artist proof cards from the Cup. Those are released in the product in the form of redemptions, and collectors can redeem them and either cut them up or display them as is. There's about one or two proof sheets, I would say, per set, so there's quite a bit out there, and you've probably seen them kicking around. I believe they started to do that maybe like the second or third year of the Cup, I believe, but I'm a little bit fuzzy on those details. But these ones that I just picked up, again from OPG Premier, I don't know if I've ever seen, an uncut sheet of these at all. So I don't know what the story behind these were. Usually artist proof sheets are just, they're not really released, for public consumption. For those who are familiar with them, for those who aren't, an artist proof card is a card that is basically for the production team to sort of print what they have, to sort of look over the set and see that the foil matches where it's supposed to go, the colors match, things like that. And then they give the green light to the rest of the production team to go ahead and create the cards and get them ready for pack out. So the fact these cards even surfaced is quite the story. And so just had to add them to the collection. So a little bit long-winded, but yeah, just really happy to have these in the collection.
Yeah, definitely really cool pieces, and I'm glad that you made the differentiation between the cut proofs that everyone is pretty familiar with and these OPG Premier ones because they do seem to have kind of that different backstory that we aren't really sure about. So, I mean, the cup ones are cool, but people are kind of familiar with those and have seen them and everything. But yeah, these OPG Premier ones are definitely a little bit more mysterious and a little bit more interesting as a result. So definitely cool that you were able to pick those up.
Definitely. I mean, cards with a story, they're just, I don't know, for me, they add another layer to it, and it's always fun to add. And now, just moving on to our next topic here, one of the main topics of the show is just something we always like talking about every year, kind of our old faces in new places episode, just taking a look at people who are on the move, trades, and of course the draft, people joining your favorite team next year. So we're just going to, on and off, just touch on some players here. We're starting off with the trades. Ivan Provorov to Columbus, Ryan Johansson to Colorado, Taylor Hall to Chicago, Alex Newhook to Montreal, Pierre-Luc Dubois to the LA Kings, Tyler Toffoli to the New Jersey Devils. I don't even know how to say his name. Sharagovich to Calgary, Riley Smith to Pittsburgh, Alex DeBrincat to Detroit, and Dominic Kubalik to Ottawa. So those are sort of the notable trades around the league. And Eric, does any of those kind of jump out to you? I know one name to me does, as far as impact on the hobby, or maybe there's some collectors out there who would notice that on their screen and just really, hey, that player is going somewhere else. I'm going to collect their cards. Maybe has a little bit more of a following than others.
Yeah, obviously the guys that you listed there are kind of the more notable guys that have been traded so far this offseason. Obviously there's been a lot more, but those are kind of the guys that might, have some sort of a some hobby implications one way or the other. Yeah, there are definitely some that stand out to me. I mean, I think starting off with one of the first guys you mentioned, Taylor Hall, coming to the Chicago Blackhawks and presumably playing with Connor Bedard this year. Obviously, that could give him a nice potential to have kind of a bounce back season and, kind of, I don't know if reclaim his career is the right phrase, but kind of just get back to that level that people had come to expect. I'm not saying he's going to be a Hart Trophy level type of player this year by any means. I don't think that's the case. But, if he can get up, more in that, 70 or 80 point range, playing next to Bedard, which, if he can, that'd be great. I don't think that's necessarily super unrealistic. That could definitely, have a pretty positive impact on the values of his cards for sure. Alex Newhook going to the Canadians, obviously, that's going to help his stock for sure. Not much more needs to be said about that. Pierre-Luc Dubois to Los Angeles. That's kind of an interesting one. He's going from a Canadian market to an American market, but obviously going to Los Angeles, that's one of, the biggest markets that there is. So, and the Kings are kind of an up and coming team. So if he can kind of continue growing with that team, and if they do eventually have some team success, that could definitely bode well for his stuff. And then one that's definitely really interesting to me, of course, is Alex DeBrincat going to the Detroit Red Wings. And again, kind of a similar thing going from a Canadian market to a US market. But again, I think with DeBrincat, it's kind of even a little bit different of a situation than Dubois, just because DeBrincat is from Michigan. So Red Wings fans are automatically, in love with him. They have wanted the Red Wings to acquire him for a little while now, even dating back to last summer when the Blackhawks were first moving DeBrincat. So I think that that's a really good fit for the player and the team. And I think that that could definitely bode well for his card values, especially since they had kind of started tanking a little bit toward the end of his time in Ottawa, just because he didn't have a very good season last season. So I think a lot of people are expecting that in Detroit, DeBrincat will be able to have a little bit of a resurgence and, see his value go back up. And then on the flip side of that trade, Dominic Kubalik going to Ottawa as part of that deal. I think that's kind of an interesting one too. Maybe just him getting a little bit more notoriety in a Canadian market might help his value, especially if he is able to, continue producing offensively.
Very good points, especially off the top there about Taylor Hall. I mean, we're going to talk about Bedard a little bit later on when we get to the draft. But yeah, I mean, playing with the next, generational talent in the league, it's going to help your stock, especially like you were saying, not really a resurgence, but I guess you could say like maybe I don't know how old he is. Like I know he's not that old, but sort of like a good way to sort of start, the later half of your career. If you're Taylor Hall, I think that would be, obviously one of the best ways to do it. Coming from Boston and the best season ever to playing with, the next generational talent. I mean, pretty good timing for Taylor Hall. So I think, if you're a collector of his or just the general, bandwagon, I guess that's going to be loaded if you're, a new Chicago Blackhawks fan because of Bedard. I think he's another player that could get, tied into that. And I could definitely see, the team around him, if they're any good, even for a short period of time, Taylor Hall can get sort of swept up in that. And of course, the Bedard hobby hype is going to be insane. So just that's one key name for me that because of the Bedard hype, he might get swept up in that. So yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting one to watch looking to next year.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting too. He certainly has experience playing with first overall picks. Obviously, himself being a first overall pick.
Unfortunately,
Yeah, but then
is that a curse at this point? But
blessing and a curse, depending on,
I guess that's true.
teams love that he's a first overall pick magnet, but you also don't want to be picking first overall either. So, I think the trade, just as far as kind of analyzing the trade, I think it made a lot of sense for the Blackhawks, getting that skilled winger to put next to Bedard that can complement his game well, but also, Hall being that former first overall pick can kind of help Bedard, as far as how to manage expectations and, the pressures and things like that. So I think overall that was a no-brainer type of pickup for the Blackhawks, and I'm definitely excited to see how it pans out. And then turning to free agency, obviously there have been tons and tons of guys that have went from one team to another. Again, we're not going to go through every single guy. We're just going to mention a few of the more notable names, some of the more interesting names, things like that, and we can kind of break down from there. So I'll just run down the list of guys that I had written down, and then Aaron, if there are any that jump out to you, feel free to start talking about those. But Michael Bunting going to Carolina, Jonathan Drouin going to Colorado, Matt Duchene going to Dallas, Connor Brown going to Edmonton, Ryan O'Reilly going to Nashville, Jonathan Quick and Blake Wheeler going to the New York Rangers, Eunice Corpusalo going to Ottawa, Kailer Yamamoto going to Seattle, Philip Zadina going to the Sharks, Tyler Bertuzzi, Max Domi, and John Klingberg all going to the Toronto Maple Leafs, and Max Pacioretty going to the Washington Capitals.
I mean, Max Domi to the Maple Leafs, like how cool is that? His like, I'm not saying he's gonna like light it up or anything like that, but I mean he might, like playing with the players he's playing with, you never know. But I mean, a Domi Leafs card, I mean, I don't know if we thought we'd see that again. Just amazing. Like what a cool signing. And apparently he was, of course, all for it. Apparently when his agent told him that the Leafs were interested. Apparently, he didn't care about term, didn't care about the number. Just I want to sign there. Like pretty much showing his hand, being like, if they offer me anything, I'm going to take it. Right. So he wants to be there. Obviously, his dad wants him to be there, and I think all Toronto fans and Toronto collectors want him to be there too. I mean, his cards are going to be just like I could see maybe not long term, but definitely, I could see the first couple big cards that come out with them. You're gonna have to pay a premium for it. And just it's gonna be so cool seeing all the little Domi collectors come out of nowhere and collect Max Domi or just new Max Domi collectors. Uh, that's gonna be so fun to see. And of course, the product on the ice is gonna be really cool. I can only imagine his first goal with the Leafs. I think that's gonna be amazing. And yeah, I mean, I can't wait to see it. So that for me is just the best free agent signing maybe ever. I think it's so cool. Like being from Toronto. It's going to be super fun to see. So like I know next year's all about Bedard and rightly so, but I mean, Domi on the Leafs. I mean, amazing.
Yeah, I think we're going to need a dual auto of Max and Ty Domi for sure. That would be
Oh, don't
pretty
even say
cool.
that. That would be. They got to make that happen. They got to make that happen. Especially if they keep it like limited or something. I could definitely see it being a pretty, hot card.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, obviously, just the storyline is pretty fun there. Touching on some of those other names, one that's kind of interesting to me, Jonathan Drouin going to the Avalanche, just because he'll, probably have at some point an opportunity to reconnect with Nathan MacKinnon. So if they could kind of rekindle that magic that they had back in the QMJHL together, that could be, pretty interesting. And, maybe it does help Drouin kind of get back to prominence and kind of show some of what people figured he was going to do in his career. So that's kind of an interesting one to keep an eye on. Jonathan Quick and Blake Wheeler to the Rangers, that's kind of interesting. Obviously, veterans at this point and guys that are kind of just, saying, "Hey, I want to go to a good team and have a shot at a cup." Not that Quick needs a cup, he has three already, but still kind of just cool in that regard that they're saying, "Hey, it's not about the money at this point. I want to win." So that's pretty cool. I think it'll be interesting to see their cards and how they do from that standpoint. Other guys that are kind of interesting to me, Kailer Yamamoto and Philip Zadina, kind of again having those opportunities to kind of like rekindle what value they used to have. Obviously, both of those guys at one point had pretty strong hobby value and now not so much. So, if they are able to get into those good situations with their new teams and kind of even just come close to reaching the potential that they once had, I think that could obviously be really good for their values. And then one last one that I'm actually going to ask you your thoughts on this, not only just from a card standpoint, but also just, on the ice and what implications it will have. Eunice Corpusalo going to the Senators.
I mean, good goalie. Like I know he struggled a bit, when LA got rid of him, but I think he has a lot of potential. I know Ottawa, good group of people there. I know they were kind of had a disappointing season last year. They were expected to really improve and just didn't really show that. So I think they're due for something. And I think, any team that goes on a run. I mean, we saw this with Boston this year during the regular season. You definitely need great goaltending. So I think if they can sort of, ride him a little bit and of course step up as well across the whole team and kind of live up to that potential they've had, that silent potential they've sort of had the last 1 or 2 seasons, I think he can be a driving force of that. And Canadian markets, you never really know what's going to happen. And when they're good, it could definitely show up on some key cards of certain players. So I think for the goalies, it's especially true. And so for Korpisalo, I think it's a possibility. But I think it's a good signing. I know they're pretty deep when it comes to, potential in between the pipes. So we'll see how it shakes up. But he might not be the guy. Maybe someone else will emerge. But, it's a decent signing for sure. See what happens.
Yeah, it seems like, I mean, they gave him the money and the term that it seems like he's going to be their guy. But, like you said, they also have Anton Forsberg, Mads Sogard.
Yeah,
So,
you never know. You never know who's going to step up.
yeah. And I mean, clearly we saw with Vegas, you need more than one or two goalies if you're going to go deep.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Exactly. So we'll see what happens. But it's a good signing, and I'm hoping he does well because I liked him, especially when he broke into the league. He was a fun goalie to watch. So hopefully he does well, but not too well because Ottawa. But
true. And then also wanted to touch on a handful of players that, as of when we are recording this, which granted that means that as of tomorrow, they'll have been traded or signed or whatever. But wanted to at least mention a handful of guys who have not yet signed with a new team or been traded away from their current team, who very well might still be moved this summer. So first one being Connor Hellebuyck. Second being Patrick Kane, which, as of the day that we're recording this, there was a report that he will not sign with the team until the season is underway, just to kind of get through his rehab and then assess the situation at that point. So there probably won't be any Kane news for a while. But other guys, like I said, Hellebuyck, his name has been in the trade mills for quite a while. Same with Erik Karlsson, same with William Nylander, and then probably the other biggest name free agent yet to sign is Vladimir Tarasenko. So, Aaron, any of those names that you want to touch on there?
a few, yeah. I mean, Willie Nylander, obviously heavily rumored. He's been rumored to be the guy that's going to be on the chopping block since he got to Toronto. It might finally happen. I mean, we'll see. But yeah, like obviously a big name there. As far as card values, though, I don't know I mean, unless he goes and wins the cup and plays out of his mind, I don't know if there's much room for him if he leaves Toronto. I mean, his card price for years have sort of, I mean, among, the big three have been sort of baked into the fact that, they're part of the core, they're on the Leafs, and they're on their way to winning a cup. Like their prices have sort of like almost been baked into that stuff being an expectation. So if he one leaves Toronto and two doesn't win a cup, it's like, where does his value go from there? I mean, it's possible he does really well and the team he goes to goes on a run and those card prices, stay the same and maybe go up a little bit, but I don't know if that will happen. I guess we'll see what happens. I mean, he could stay with the Leafs and they could have a really good year and things continues as is, but yeah, we'll see. Another name for me is Erik Karlsson. I mean, he just sort of came out of nowhere again and had an amazing season as far as card values. I don't know if that'll be kept up because defensemen sort of don't really have that hobby, I guess, longevity. I mean, anyone could have that as a rookie. I mean, maybe McCarr will be different, but I mean, for Carlson and many defensemen before him, we just didn't see it. So, it's very possible that his value, I mean, not that it's at all-time highs right now, but does increase and he does keep on having, his, dream seasons, now and his new team. But I mean, I don't really know if that's possible. And, I think it was sort of like a good run, but I don't know if he can duplicate that again. So anything's possible, but I don't really see his, like, if you're banking on his value continuing on an upward trend, I don't really know if that is likely. And I'll let Eric take the floor on any other names. But yeah, good group there.
Yeah, I would agree with those points for sure. I mean, I think a lot of it too is obviously going to come down to where they end up. Obviously, that's a huge factor when it comes to value. So Nylander leaving Toronto, if he does, not saying that he will, but his name has been out there a lot. And it seems like at some point something's going to give in Toronto. It seems like it kind of has to. So yeah, I mean, if he is the one that goes, it's kind of hard to envision him maintaining that value, even if he continues to play really well. It's just kind of that, you're leaving Toronto and well, your value's probably going to go down. So, and same with the other guys, like I said, it's just going to kind of come down to what type of a situation they're in. Most of those guys would probably be going somewhere that's going to be, a contending team. So obviously, if they did have team success, you could definitely see values either, staying pretty similar or going up, whereas if they went somewhere not as notable or didn't have much success, then they might, go down a bit. And then transitioning to the draft, obviously we have thus far been talking about current NHL players, whereas now we're going to look at some future NHL players. For those who don't know, and I don't think I've said too much about this, but I was actually fortunate enough to attend the draft in person in Nashville. I think it was the fifth draft I've been at. And obviously, just a really fun experience, really cool to witness in person. One of my favorite things, honestly, when you're at a draft is kind of just if you walk around the concourse and just see all of the people that you run into. It's pretty cool. I saw multiple head coaches walking around the concourse and like Greg Wyshynski from ESPN walking around the concourse and stuff like that. So just kind of a who's who of hockey when you're at an event like that. And it's really cool to just kind of see that kind of stuff. And you can obviously watch it on TV and still know what happens and stuff, but being there and taking it all in person is really cool. So obviously I was really glad to do that. And of course, the reason why I wanted to go is because the Blackhawks had the first overall pick and of course took Connor Bedard, like we have already alluded to. Obviously I think it's great for the hobby that he's going to be in a major market, whereas if he ended up in Anaheim or Columbus, or somewhere like that, his hobby value wouldn't have been quite as strong. So being in Chicago in a big market obviously is really beneficial for the hobby and definitely going to help his card values a little bit compared to if he was in a smaller market. So, and obviously just on the ice, I am beyond thrilled to have him going to the Blackhawks. I mean, just truly a generational talent. Aaron and I were talking before we started recording that, this is, in the salary cap era, so post 2005, a lot of people would say he's the second best prospect to come along in that era, second behind Connor McDavid. So, if he can live up to those expectations, it would just be incredible, not only for the hobby, but for hockey in general. So yeah, definitely very excited to see, how his career is gonna pan out.
It's very true. I mean, yeah, like I would agree with that assessment. I mean, just a generational talent and just sort of that can do everything playmaker type player, like a Crosby, McDavid type guy. It's going to be so awesome to see him lace him up and get out there and start the season. I know Chicago isn't where they want to be right now, but I mean, what a way to get where you're going than with Connor Bedard. It's going to be amazing to see him play and see, the hobby be, refueled again with him there. It's really cool seeing these players make their debut and their rookie cards come out and things like that. So just, I know it's been a few years, and so we've been really fortunate as hockey fans. We've had a lot of good players come around fairly recently, but to have another big name and, to look out for, it's just, it's going to be really fun to see. So can't wait. Moving on to the second overall pick, a player that I'm a little bit familiar with. Pick number 2 going to Anaheim, Leo Carlsson from Örebro, plays over in Sweden. Örebro is the team that Enroth currently plays on, so I've seen him play a little bit, not too much on him for me, but yeah, I mean, hope he does well. I mean, Anaheim, same thing. Not the greatest spot in the world, but I mean, I'm hoping he can make a difference. It's going to be tough, obviously, a new guy coming into that environment. But hey, I'm hoping for him. Hope he does well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as far as the pick itself, I mean, I remember sitting in Bridgestone Arena and, there was a lot of talk in the week leading up to the draft of, what's Anaheim going to do at 2? Are they going to take Adam Fantilli, like everyone has kind of been expecting would be the second overall pick for quite some time? Or are they going to go a little bit off the board and take Leo Carlsson or somebody else? Like I said, in that week leading up to the draft, there was a lot of talk kind of building up about actually they might take Leo Carlsson. And then they did. And I remember just sitting there, and as soon as Pat Verbeek started, announcing the pick, everyone was kind of just like, "Whoa!" Like they actually did it. Like they actually passed on Adam Fantilli. So, that was kind of just a cool thing. And that's not something that you necessarily even pick up on TV. You might hear it a little bit, but, just sitting in the stands and hearing the reaction from pretty much the whole building of just like, whoa, like they just did that, was pretty cool. As far as the pick itself, I think it's certainly a logical pick. They get that big guy that's already got some pro experience. So maybe they feel that his game is a little bit more projectable to the NHL. And, I think it's what's good for him is that he's not going to have to go into Anaheim and be the guy. They have Zegras, they have Mason McTavish, they have Troy Terry. They already have their core that's really started to form. So he doesn't have to be the guy. I mean, obviously, he's going to be a big part of it and certainly, could be their number one center of the future. But, I think that will just kind of take a little bit of the pressure off him and just kind of allow him to ease into NHL hockey, whether that's this season or another year or so. I know he has signed his entry level contract already, but there's nothing saying that that means he has to play with the Ducks. He could play in the AHL, he could play in the CHL, he could go back and play for Orbro, whatever it might be. But yeah, definitely that was a very, very interesting pick. And like I said, kind of one that took people by surprise, but it'll be really interesting to see, in 5, 10 years, was that the right pick, or should they have just taken the guy that everyone thought they were going to take in Adam Fantilli? So then turning to the third overall pick, the aforementioned Adam Fantilli going to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Obviously, that's a home run of a pick for the Blue Jackets. I'm sure that Jarmo Kekalainen and the rest of the Blue Jackets staff were just kind of in shock that he was there. And I had also kind of heard some rumblings that if Fantilli had gone 2 to Anaheim, that the Blue Jackets were actually going to take Will Smith at 3, and that Carlson would then fall to 4. So, I think entering the draft, the Blue Jackets were kind of thinking that they might end up more with Will Smith, but then boom, Adam Fantilli falls into their lap, and I'm sure they were absolutely thrilled with that. I think pretty much most any year Adam Fantilli would be, a first overall pick. So just a big body do it all center that, I think is going to fit in perfectly in Columbus, and is really what they have been missing. So, I think that was just a home run of a pick for them, and is definitely going to be a great pick for them in the long run. As far as hobby value, obviously Columbus is, definitely one of the smaller markets, but kind of looking at, the trajectory that they have as an organization, it seems like adding somebody like an Adam Fantilli into that mix is, potentially kind of that last missing piece almost. And, it'll be really, really fun to kind of see, his career unfold and see how the Blue Jackets as a whole, are able to do kind of alongside of his progression.
And at the next pick from Montreal, David Reinbacher. Hopefully I pronounced that right.
You didn't pause long enough though.
Okay. I should probably pause way more.
Or just
Yeah,
forget his name.
or just totally forget his name, like Carey Price, right? I still haven't seen the video of that. I should probably look that up. Is that what he did? He paused for a very long time and just forgot it?
He like
Or David something, or
he said David, and then you could tell he was like thinking about how do I pronounce it, and then just like
forgot
the
it?
longer it went, he just like kind of froze. And I would say, like, honestly, that's quite possibly the most like socially awkward situation that I have ever experienced in person. I mean, it was just like so cringeworthy, like, oh my gosh, like just
Right?
say it.
But he forgot it, so he couldn't say it, which is like, oh man, I feel for Carey. I mean, great goalie, but that's a tough one. So yeah, David Reinbacher. Pick number 5. I don't really know too much about the guy, to be honest. Probably why Carey Price forgot his name. Plays out of Austria, I believe. And yeah, but whenever he starts making an impact, if he does anything dramatic, his cards are going to spike because Montreal fans are crazy in a good way. So yeah, hopefully the Montreal fans are happy with him. I'm sure Carey Price knows his name now. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's a solid pick and hopefully it works out for the Canadians.
Yeah, I like the pick. I think it's what they kind of needed is having that really solid all-around defender, which is what Reinbacher is. And some people were kind of surprised that he went that high. Some people figured he'd probably be more in that like 7, 8, 9, 10 range. But it didn't surprise me that Montreal took him at 5. I kind of figured that he would either go 5 or 6. So seeing him go to Montreal at 5 made perfect sense to me. I'm kind of intrigued because there's already been a lot of backlash from Canadians fans on social media about the pick. I don't know why. I think they just, were like, oh, Michkov is there. We got to take Michkov, yada, yada, yada. But I really like the pick. And I think in the long run, even if Michkov goes on and has a great career, I think the fit for Reinbacher going to Montreal, I think is just a really, really smart pick on their part. And yeah, I think it's going to be a good fit, and he will have a good career. And I think that the Canadians fans will eventually learn that that is a good pick, and as a result, he'll definitely have some pretty strong value for sure. Probably won't have a super productive career offensively. Not that he isn't good offensively, but he's just kind of more that all-around type of defenseman. So he won't put up huge numbers. So he probably won't have that massive hobby value. But like you said, Aaron, just the fact that he's in Montreal is definitely going to help his hobby value for sure. So that'll be an interesting one to keep an eye on. And then obviously we're kind of just touching on the more notable picks here. We're not going through everybody. So jumping down to 7, the aforementioned Matvei Michkov going to the Philadelphia Flyers. Obviously, he was kind of the big wild card going into the draft of this guy skill wise is the second best player in the draft. But with the Russia factor and the fact he's under contract for 3 more years in the KHL, and he is a little bit smaller of a player, kind of all those things, it was kind of where's he going to go? Some people thought that Anaheim might even take the swing on him at 2, and some people thought that he might fall out of the top 10. Most people kind of figured he would go in that 4 to 8 range. I think a lot of people felt that he would not make it past Washington at 8, which I would agree with. Obviously the storyline there would have been amazing, but yeah, I think it's a really good pick for Philadelphia because they're kind of at the beginning of this, tear down, start over type of stage in the franchise. So they really do kind of have that time to wait for him to come over. And, I think that, it sounds like he wanted to be in Philadelphia. I know leading up to the draft, he was able to meet with a few teams the weekend prior and the days leading up to the draft. And it sounded like, based on some reports, that Philadelphia was kind of one of his preferred teams that he would have liked to have gone to. So I think, Philadelphia taking the swing on him there was a really good move, especially considering that they did have a second first round pick later on in the round. So I really like the pick on their part and think, getting him at 7 is great value. And, it'll be interesting to see long-term hobby value. Obviously, that's going to be pretty heavily tied to, how productive he ends up being. But, if he can reach the potential that people feel like he has, this is a guy that could have massive, massive value down the road. So maybe he doesn't reach the card values of Bedard ever, but if you look back at 0506, you had Crosby and Ovechkin, and it was always kind of Crosby had more value until the last handful of years when it was like, okay, but Ovechkin very well might be the all-time leading goal scorer. And, then that kind of propelled Ovechkin's value past Crosby. So, I'm not saying that this will be the exact same situation, but it kind of has that type of a feel where it's like Bedard was the guy, that everyone was looking forward to. But, Michkov, depending on if he does have, a super prolific goal scoring career, could end up having some huge value down the road. So that's kind of an interesting little tidbit to keep in mind for the future.
The next pick we're talking about, this was a really off the board pick, number 28, the Toronto Maple Leafs, Easton Cowan. I mean, who saw this one coming? I sure didn't. Many Leafs fans, and I'm sure people in the building were like, who is that? I think he was projected maybe 3rd round, if that. And I mean, just a weird pick overall. But I've talked to some people who are fans of the London Knights, and they've just said he's a little on the small side, but just a gritty player who's going to fight and win puck battles. So, I mean, definitely a sleeper pick for sure, but they're excited about it. So, I mean, I would take their word for it for sure. So, I mean, wishing the guy the best of luck. I mean, he's only 18 years old, so plenty of time to develop still, but just a weird pick for sure. But I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, Toronto's a tough market, but I mean, they have a lot of London Knights players, a lot of London alum. So maybe it's their system. Who knows? But I mean, they've developed smaller players before and they can do it again. So hoping the best for the kid because he's going to be coming in with a lot of expectations and I hope he can handle it. And if he makes any impact at all, especially right away in his career, in similar Toronto fashion, they'll be right all over him as far as the cards go. So wishing him the best of luck. And I hope he wears a maple leaf one day.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting pick. I mean, I remember sitting there just kind of being like, wait, what? Like who did they pick? And I knew the name, and like you said, he was kind of projected to be definitely a later pick. Some people didn't even have him in the top 100, some people had him in the third round, but kind of interesting with him is he had a really, really strong finish to the season, especially in the playoffs, and that kind of
Yeah.
helped raise his stock. And a lot of people kind of felt that as a result that he might even sneak into the second round, mid to late second round, but the fact that the Leafs took the swing on him late in the first round, I think definitely kind of caught a lot of people off guard. And, it'll be really interesting. He's not, the guy that's going to come in and be the next Mitch Marner. That's just not his game. He's kind of long term going to be more of like a third line type of guy. And, I don't mind that because obviously the Leafs have the talent already, but they're looking for those character role type of guys that can do a little bit of everything. And those are the guys that you ultimately win with. So I like the mentality behind the pick. Obviously, a pretty early, pick to take the swing on him with, but you definitely can understand the thought process. And clearly the Leafs identified him as, being their guy. And they just said, you know what, we're going to take him. So have to respect that for sure. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see, if he does eventually play for the Leafs. Obviously, that'll inherently really help his value. So just kind of an interesting one. I figured I would throw Cowan into that mix. Obviously, the first five guys we mentioned are all pretty known quantities that people are familiar with. But yeah, just kind of an interesting one that, really caught people off guard. And yeah, just figured it'd be kind of fun to touch on him too. And going back to talking a little bit about my experience there, one really fun highlight for me, this happened on the second day of the draft, but I was actually walking around the concourse and I was going to meet up with a friend of mine who's a beat writer for the Blackhawks. And as I was kind of walking around the concourse, I ended up walking by Upper Deck's setup that they had. They always are at the draft and have like you can get your own card made, and they have like different prize drawings and stuff if you buy a
Did you
box of
get your
cards.
own card made?
I did not. I did not
Oh, one
did
of these
not
years.
partake. I know. I
Got to get
did.
like a centerized card cast card.
True, true. Maybe that was a missed opportunity, but yeah, I've done that back in my childhood and have a couple of cards like that that were done at drafts and shows and stuff like that. But yeah, so I was kind of walking by and just kind of looking over, and I was like, that guy kind of looks familiar. And I'm like, is that Paul? I'm pretty sure that's Paul. I haven't met him. I think that's him. I'm not sure. So I was kind of like going through this in my head, like, should I go over? Like, I don't want to embarrass myself if that's not him. I'm pretty sure that's him. I don't know. So I was kind of, going through that and I'm waiting for my buddy. And then after a few minutes, I'm like, I'm just going to go up and, see if it's him. So I do. And I'm just like, hey, like, are you Paul? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, hey, like, I'm Eric from Sunrise Cartcast. And he knew right away who I was. And we talked for, I don't know, probably like 5 minutes or so, kind of just talking about the draft as a whole and talking about the podcast and stuff like that. So it was really, really cool to meet Paul and put a face with the name and just get to know him a little bit. And obviously we've mentioned him quite a few times on the show already, just because of the crazy generosity that he has showed to us by sending us boxes of cards to open up on the show for you guys. So yeah, to actually meet him and just have a conversation was really, really cool, and definitely glad that I don't know if got the courage up was the right word. Not that it was really that, but kind of more just convinced myself that, yeah, that's him. I should go say hi. So definitely glad that I did that. And it was really fun to meet him and talk to him. So kind of using that as a segue, earlier this year in one of the packages that Paul sent us, he sent us a box of 2022 Team Canada Juniors. And, when I first saw the box, I was like, okay, we should save that for an episode when we talk about the draft because of, Connor Bedard and Adam Fantilli and guys like that. So have had this box sitting around for a few months at this point, but obviously this is a really fitting episode to open this stuff in just because, like I said, we've been talking about these draft players, and obviously that's, kind of what this product is about, is featuring a lot of players who have played for Canada at the World Juniors and or will in the future. I know they have the U20 team featured, they have the U18 team featured and stuff like that. So yeah, I just figured it would be a good way to share this box and talk about the product a little bit. So for those who are not familiar, and I can't say that I'm overly familiar since it's typically a Canadian exclusive product. I've never opened it before. It is 15 packs per box, 6 packs per box. You get 4 hits with at least one of those being an auto or an auto patch. And like I alluded to earlier, there are a handful of pretty notable 2023 draft prospects who are featured in the product. Connor Bedard, Adam Fantilli, Matthew Wood, who was 15th overall to the Nashville Predators. He's kind of a guy that I was hoping would fall to the Blackhawks at 19, but that did not happen. Lucas Dragicevic, who is a defenseman, he's also in here. And I think there might be 1 or 2 other guys, but those are kind of the more prominent names to keep an eye on in this product as far as the 2023 draft class goes. So without further ado, I'm going to crack into this, and I'm going to hope that I will get my first ever Connor Bedard card. I do not have a single one in my collection, not even a base card, not a promotional card, nothing, not a single card. So even if I get a base card, I will be pretty happy with that.
I think today's the day. I think you're going to get a Bedard card. And I think it's going to be minimum a numbered card.
Ooh, okay.
I'm going to go with that.
Well, I hope you're right, because that would be pretty awesome. I know, I believe his auto patch cards from this product sell like 12, 1,500, like in that
That would
range.
be
Like they
nuts.
are
Pull a
big
card like
dollar
that.
cards. So
That's
obviously
awesome.
they're harder to get, but
Of
even
course.
just getting like a nice parallel, or even if I was lucky enough to get a jersey card, that'd be really cool too.
That would be
So
nice.
I will say from the top that if there is an auto patch, I will set it aside and save it for the end. I'll be that guy just to build some suspense, but let's see what we got. It looks like the first pack has a jersey card, and I won't mention every single base card just to save some time, but did get Shane Wright, got a red parallel, which I believe are 1 per pack, of Caleb Parker, who I believe was also another 2023 draft pick, so that's another name. And our first jersey, that's a good name for sure. Anaheim Ducks prospect, Olin Zellweger. That's a pretty good one there. Pretty cool. And then
Nice.
Pillars of Light parallel, which are 1 in 5 packs, Michael Mastro Domenico.
Nice. Those look pretty cool.
Yeah, nice looking card for sure. So kind of interesting that out of that entire pack, now obviously there were only 4 cards in the pack because of the jersey card, but out of the 4, only 1 was a base card. So that's kind of cool. Nice to get a lot of hits rather than base cards. So pretty good start there. Move on to pack number 2. Aaron, have you ever opened any of this product before?
No, I haven't. I mean, I've seen people open it. It always seems pretty cool. Love national team stuff, so it's always a cool product to see people open.
Got a
Plus, as a
nice,
Canadian, I mean, come on.
yeah, of
Hmm,
course, of
awesome.
course. We've got our red parallel is a Pride of the Program red of the aforementioned Matthew Wood. So another 2023 draft prospect, pretty cool. We've got a blue parallel, a Prospectus Momentous, numbered out of 349 of Matthew Morden. Can't
That
say I'm
sounds
a
like a Harry Potter spell or something. Prospectus Momentus. That sounds definitely like a spell.
true.
Anyway, that's my new favorite hockey card set.
Can't say I'm overly
I'm gonna
familiar with
collect
the
the master
players.
set, and then I'm gonna have like the master spell book on that
There you go.
card.
And finally, a Pride of the Program, which these are just kind of a subset within the base set. They're not actual inserts, but a good name. Guy that we've talked about already so far, Adam Fantilli.
Nice. I bet he can cast Prospectus Momentumus, whatever that's called. He's a top prospect with some top level magic.
On the pack number 3, and I want to say you get like 4 or 5 numbered cards per box. I think it's 5. So we'll
Sounds about
see.
right.
We'll see how we can do here. On to the third pack, we've got a red parallel of Will Cooley, and that's a nice looking card. It is a red champagne Pride of the Program, again, of Matthew Wood. So that's a pretty cool looking card. Obviously, the red is a really nice look. Pack number 4. But pretty cool that we've already gotten quite a few cards of 2023 draft prospects. Obviously not the guy that we were hoping for, but still cool nonetheless. Pack number 4. There we go. My first ever Connor Bedard card, a Bedard Pride of the Program subset card.
Hey, not bad. That looks really cool.
Yeah, very nice
Very
card.
good card.
Again, even though it is just a base card, still my first ever, so that's pretty cool. Got
Gets
a
the
red,
collection started.
absolutely. We've got a red parallel of Josh Philman. We've got a program of excellence of Matthew Ward, which I think that's just another base subset. Got to look up the odds on this one. I think these are a little bit harder to pull. A sparkling standouts insert of Maverick Bork.
Nice. Those look awesome. Those look really cool.
Yeah, all foiled out, kind of like a black diamond, an old school black diamond type of card.
That's awesome. Great looking card.
Those are pretty cool. Part of the program of Dylan Genther as well. So those are considered to be a tech insert card, which are 1 per box, and the sparkling standout cards are 1 in 28 packs.
Not bad.
There you go.
Beating the odds there.
On to pack number 5. See if we can get a cool goalie card for Aaron.
I mean, as is tradition on any of your box breaks on this podcast,
True.
sweet goalie cards.
Right on cue, we have a red parallel of Brett Brochu.
Nice. Very cool. Good
There you
goalie.
go. You've got one of Aaron's favorites, Prospectus Momentus, of a guy who was actually included in the Alex DeBrincat trade. So now he is a prospect for the Ottawa Senators, Donovan Sabrango.
Nice. Love that card set. And they even have, apparently here, they have autograph versions of that. So awesome.
Yes. That's cool. We have a program of excellence clear cut of David Goyette.
Oh, nice.
That's pretty cool.
Those look nice.
And of course, the Canadian women's team is also featured in this product, which is really cool. I know some people don't like that, but I think it's
it's awesome.
great.
No, it's really cool. Some great athletes there, so to get their own cards. I know there's a lot of fans out there, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
Can't argue with that.
All right, on to the 6th pack, which is starting the middle column of the box. We have love that. We've got a red Pride of the Program parallel, Connor Bedard.
Ooh, hey, there we go. All right. Working on that rainbow.
To go with the base version, but that is a really sharp looking card.
Is there any other parallels for that set?
I guess there would be the Pillars of Light, the Red Champagne, all of those. So yeah, there are quite a few other
Still,
parallels.
I mean, to get 2, I mean, that's awesome.
We've got a Prospectus Momentous Red, numbered out of 549, of Graydon Seepman. Can't say I'm familiar.
Best set of all time. I can't get over how much I like that set name. Anyway, I'll probably stop mentioning it. Maybe.
Oh no, you gotta keep playing into it for sure. On to the next pack, which is pack number 7. So we're almost at the halfway point here. Still looking for our hit of the box. Got a red parallel of Rieger Lorenz. Did get a Pride of the Program of Lucas Dragisevich, so one of those other 2023 draft prospects. On to pack number 8. Looks like we're saving a lot of the hits for the second half of the box. Got a Pride of the Program red, guy we just mentioned, Rieger Lorenz. And a Pride of the Program Pillars of Light of Braden Sherman. Those are pretty cool looking cards.
They are nice.
And we've got a UD exclusives numbered out of 100 of Michael Mastro Domenico.
Nice. Love that red foil.
Yeah, definitely pops really well on obviously a Team Canada card. And a goalie base of Reed Dyke on pack number 9. I mean, hey, already getting a couple of Bedard cards, including a parallel. Can't complain.
I call that a win. I mean, I know you still have some hits left, obviously, but I mean, that's pretty cool.
We've got a red parallel of Nick Moldenauer on to pack number 10. So this is the 2/3 point. Like we might have another jersey in here. Got a goalie card of Nolan Lalonde wearing his Erie Otters pads. Pretty cool.
Nice. That's the set. That's really cool.
Got a red parallel of Blair Turnbull from the women's team. Speaking of the women's team, we have a game-worn jersey of Natalie Spooner. Obviously, a pretty good name there.
Yeah, great name.
We should have 2 hits coming out of these last 5 packs, including probably also another numbered card, I would think. Maybe 2. So it should be a pretty good end of the box here. Got a red parallel of Donovan Sabrango. It's a cool one. We got a Pillars of Light parallel of Sebastian Cosa. Obviously, a pretty good goalie prospect for the Wings there. 4 packs left. Should still have 2 hits coming. Got a red Pride of the Program of Matthew Morden. And there's our hit. Nice card. A Prospectus Momentous autograph. You jinxed it, Aaron.
Oh, I love it. Love it
A
already.
pretty good prospect. I believe he was a first-round pick with the Dallas Stars, I want to say, in 2020. Maverick Bork.
Nice. Prospectus momentous. Oh, love it so much.
There
I bet
you
he's a fan
go.
of Harry Potter. Just guaranteed. As soon as he signed that card, I know it's a sticker auto, but still, as soon as he saw those cards of himself, oh, he just became a Harry Potter fan.
I'm sure he did. So the Prospectus Momentous autographs are 1 in 180, so they are a little bit tougher to get. And Bork is a Group E, which looks like that is the most common, I believe, at 1 in 464. So
And hey,
pretty
you beat
good,
the odds. I
pretty good hit
mean,
there.
some people would call that magic.
You will never let it go, will you?
No.
On to pack, what is this? Pack number 13. Coming down to it here. Got a red parallel of Shane Wright. We've got a Pride of the Program exclusives parallel numbered out of 100 of Kocha Delic. Can't say I know much about him. 2 packs left. Should still have at least 1 more hit coming. Probably just a jersey, but that is quite all right. Well, it looks like we've got it here. So I'm going to set that aside. I'll be that guy. Save that for the end. We'll jump ahead to pack number 15. See if we can muster anything else here. Got a red parallel of Pano Themis. Can't say I know anything about him. Got a Prospectus Momentous of Adam Fantilli.
Big card.
And going back to pack number 14 with our jersey card here. Starting off, we have got a red parallel of Melody Daou on the women's team. And our last hit is a game-worn jersey. You're going to like this one, of Dylan Grand.
Nice. Great way to end it off.
So that'll do it base the rest of the way. But I mean, hey, 2 Bedards, nice autograph, pretty solid box, I would say. Can't complain too much about that at all. Pretty happy with the Bedards, of course, especially that red parallel is really sharp looking. So definitely happy with those.
Great looking cards. I mean, the inserts were pretty cool. Yeah, a good way to look at the stars of the future. And anything you can get an national team set. It's always really, really cool. So yeah, awesome.
Yeah, definitely. It kind of, with that feel of, highlighting some future players, kind of almost like a Team Canada themed heroes and prospects in a way, if it kind of has that type of a vibe. But yeah, pretty cool. So I think that'll do it. Obviously this is an episode that we really enjoy doing every year, just kind of looking at guys who've moved around and assessing how that might affect the hobby. And, obviously looking at on the ice too is really fun too. So definitely a fun episode every year that we look forward to. But I think that'll pretty much do it. Obviously, this is our first episode in a while. Kind of just had a lot going on and some technical difficulties with my laptop. I got a new laptop that's kind of been a little bit hard to get set up and get stuff transferred over and stuff. So this episode's been a long time coming, but hopefully you guys have enjoyed it nonetheless. And we will get back on a more normal pace here for sure moving forward. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, good to be back, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. So with that, we'll wrap it up. And please be sure to follow us on social media as always. We can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Center Ice Cardcast, and on Twitter at Center Ice CC. Please also be sure to subscribe to the show on your podcast platform of choice to make sure you never miss a future episode. Until next time on Center Ice Cardcast, keep collecting those hockey cards.